today we are going to be talking about the respiratory system. And the respiratory system, as you guys probably already know, works with the circulatory system. And what do these two systems do when they work together? They get oxygen to your body cells, and they get carbon dioxide out of your body cells. Okay, this is an exchange, right? We're trading oxygen for carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a waste product of our body, of cellular respiration, and oxygen is a reactant that we need for our body cells to go through cellular respiration. So we're going to look at several different parts of our respiratory system and what they contribute and how they help us get oxygen into our body and to our body cells. Now, the respiratory system simply focuses on those gases getting to our blood, and then your circulatory system takes over and can transport it to where it needs to go. And the way that it does this is through the mouth and nose. Now I'm going to color code this red, this little mouth. And the mouth and nose are the external openings for the respiratory system. The nose is the main one that we breathe through. Air enters and exits the body here. Not just oxygen, right? We breathe in a mixture of gases, and so it is air. Our body pulls the oxygen out that we need. The mouth is also used for taking in and expelling. That means breathing out, right? So our nose and mouth are used to take in and breathe out a mixture of gases from the environment around us, right? Once it goes through your mouth and nose, it comes through your trachea. And so I'm going to switch and I'm going to use blue to show your trachea. Your trachea is also known as your windpipe. Your windpipe connects to your larynx, and your larynx, NYX. Your larynx is what allows you to speak. It's what allows you to have a voice, okay? And so it's actually a lot of thin little cords that go over an opening, and air passes over those cords depending on how you've contracted the muscles that surround those cords. So your larynx is a pretty cool little part of your respiratory system. Allows us to have a voice. But your trachea is this whole section right here, right? This whole little tube. And if you feel along your neck, you can feel these little ridges. These are the rings that line it. They're made of cartilage. And that cartilage helps your airway to stay open, right? Because if your airway gets too narrow, then it makes it difficult for you to breathe. Some people have asthma where their airway, their trachea, gets too narrow for enough air to pass through. So sometimes you might see them use an inhaler, or they might take a medication to help them keep their windpipe, their trachea, open so that air can pass through there. Next, in our little flow of air to get to our lungs, we're going to switch and we're going to color this green. And this is called the bronchus. Okay, it's this little split right here. And as they get into the lungs, we call them bronchioles. If there's multiple, we call them bronchi. And bronchi are just passageways. They're passageways that go into the lungs. They get smaller and smaller and smaller the farther into your lungs you go. In fact, I think that there's a statistic that if you were to take all of the surface area, right, math word here, of the alveoli, which we'll talk about in just a second, of your lungs and lay it flat, it would cover a tennis court. That's how much air your body can access at one time. And one of the steps along that passageway are bronchioles. Okay, these can then evolve into these small little air sacs called alveoli. And alveoli, this is where the magic happens. Alveoli are super important. They are literally what enables you to exchange your oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body. And we'll talk about them down here. So alveoli look kind of like clouds. And they're connected to these little bronchial tubes like this, right? Really tiny ones. And so then these blood vessels, right, you breathe in and air goes in here. So let's use a blue so you can see what I mean. Air's coming in the bronchioles. And so oxygen gets into these little sacs, right? Well, right on the other side of these sacs are blood vessels, right? Some of these blood vessels are trying to take oxygen to your body cells, and some of them are trying to send carbon dioxide out. Because remember, CO2 is our waste. We're sending the CO2 back out, and the oxygen is coming into the bloodstream, right? So oxygen is coming in and carbon dioxide is going out, and that's where this exchange happens, in these little tiny sacs in the lungs. They allow that oxygen and carbon dioxide to move between the lungs and the bloodstream. So as you can see, right, these tiny blood vessels, right, they're going to take it back to larger blood vessels and larger until it goes back to the body cells that it needs to see, right? All right, now alveoli, all of these tiny little alveoli, these tiny little sacs, make up your lungs, okay? These are the primary organ of the respiratory system. They take in oxygen, also known as O2, and they expel carbon dioxide. That's CO2. They're inflated and deflated using the action of the diaphragm, which is the muscle of the lungs. Well, not of the lungs, of the respiratory system. Okay, so the diaphragm, let's talk about it a little bit. Well, we're going to color our lungs purple first. Purple lungs. Pretty purple lungs. Okay, so remember, our lungs are full of these little alveoli, these little sacs where gas exchange happens. Your lungs are full of them, right? A whole tennis court full. And your diaphragm is a muscle. Okay, and so we're going to color in pink, and it's right down here, and it's a long flat muscle that runs along the bottom of your thoracic cavity, the space in your body that holds your lungs and your heart. Okay, this is the most important muscle in the respiratory system, because without this muscle you cannot expand your lungs. Your lungs are not a muscle. They don't open on their own. The diaphragm pulls air in to be able to take oxygen into the body. Okay? It expands the muscle, the diaphragm, and contracts, forcing air in and out of the lungs. Sometimes, you guys might be familiar with this, this muscle gets these spasms, and it makes you go, ah, ah, right? These are hiccups. Happen when the diaphragm gets a spasm. And just like any other muscle, when it gets a cramp or a spasm, if you stretch it out by taking some slow, deep breaths and holding them and stretching that muscle, it will make your hiccups go away. So, remember, air, a mixture of air, comes into the mouth, flows down through the trachea, through the bronchi, into the tiny bronchioles that line the lungs, into the even tinier alveoli, the small sacs that fill the lungs that allow for oxygen and carbon dioxide to be exchanged. All of this action happens because of the movement, the contraction, and the relaxation of this muscle right here, your diaphragm. I hope that makes the respiratory system clearer for you. Remember, if you have any questions, you can email me at sarah.young@mbisd.org. Have a great day.